It's rare to find a game that tackles the high fantasy RPG genre in a completely refreshing way, but that's how Unicorn Overlord's character-focused approach feels. Rather than lengthy exposition, its wonderfully realized world is gradually fleshed out by the people you interact with, providing interesting perspectives as you learn the stories of both your allies and your enemies. Its overarching plot may be rather simple as a result, sticking closely to genre tropes, but when paired with a beautiful presentation, even familiar stories manage to feel fresh. Support that with excellent strategic combat and compelling resource gathering as you strive to overthrow an evil empire with the power of friendship, and Unicorn Overlord stands out as one of the most impressive strategy RPGs in years. Stop me if you've heard this one before. You're a young prince named Alain, smuggled out of your kingdom just as a corrupt king invades. One time skip later, and you're finally old enough to build a rebel army and liberate the 5 kingdoms of Fevrith to take back your birthright. While certainly not original, Unicorn Overlord's strength lies in how that campaign is presented.
Witness the royal blade!
The main quest is divided into 5 roughly 10-hour-long arcs, one for each kingdom, while side quests show smaller slices of those kingdoms up close. You're free to jump around the map and take on any fights in any order you choose, and you can even challenge the final boss within the first hour of the story, though doing so comes with a hefty warning that you'll almost certainly end up on the wrong end of an axe. Across the 5 quest lines, the ones in Bastorius, the Land of the Beast, and Elheim in Elven Kingdom stand out. Bastorius tells a strong story about the country's class hierarchy, while Elheim has the best villain and best boss fight in all of Unicorn Overlord. Calling the other activities side quests is a bit of an undersell too, as they really are the heart of this story. The quantity and variety of these tales is impressive, putting you in some tough situations that stretch across the moral spectrum. You get to determine the fate of roughly half of your potential allies, deciding if sometimes questionable characters should be welcomed into your ranks or not. The creative cast is hugely diverse, full of humans, elves, angels, and even werelions, all of whom ooze personality. That includes Melisandre, a former noble who chose to become an enemy captain in order to keep her bloodline alive, or Tatiana, a doctor experimenting on live plague victims to find a cure.
It was years ago that this horrific illness first emerged, swept through our populace like the fiercest wildfire.
It's neat to have this much influence over who joins you, especially when optional characters occasionally pop up in important cutscenes. However, that's never too impactful, and most allies only get a chance to really interact during Bond conversations, which are a very mixed bag. There are hundreds of these, prioritizing quantity over quality, so for every great back and forth, there's another that feels like filler. However, the relationships you foster do lead to the Bond of the Covenant, which acts as Unicorn Overlord's marriage mechanic. It's disappointing that you're not given the option to make your main protagonist a woman, but it is great you can still offer this bond to any man, woman, or bestrel in your army. This does strangely include your adoptive father, which thankfully is not romantically charged like most other options, but you can make the stereotypical royal decision by offering the bond to your cousin, so there's plenty of freedom here.
Let me heal you. Let me.
Faster than the wind.
Developer Vanillaware's signature 2.5D style shines once again across all of Unicorn Overlord's beautifully animated characters, and especially when you improve bonds during mouth-watering visits to the tavern.
Let's give thanks to the lives that sustain our own.
The overworld uses a different style that's not quite as striking, but this new look quickly grew on our reviewer. The world map itself transforms into the actual battlefields, with landmarks becoming garrisons to conquer, and additional obstacles like barricades and archery towers getting dropped in as tabletop-inspired standees.
Your villainy ends here.
There are loads of visual flourishes and small touches that add tremendously to the overall experience, like how the sorceress will cockily perch on a summoned throne of bats in her victory pose. Nice.
She's fast.
Not as fast as us.
What the?
That extends to Unicorn Overlord's sounds, with conversations that satisfyingly echo in places like churches, while characters in full armor have a metallic ring to their voice due to the metal bucket on their head.
My love, I come to join you once more.
In almost all cases, characters are well acted, with voices that match their appearance and social standing perfectly.
My cathedral will see no more bloodshed this day.
Music matches the high fantasy vibe in just the right way too, with tracks that change with both the time of day and the country you are in. A well-written story with breathtaking visuals might be expected from Vanillaware, but Unicorn Overlord also has one of the most impressive strategy RPG combat systems around. It blends genres, primarily combining real-time strategy and turn-based RPG mechanics that have you grouping units together to form squads. Battles occur when two squads collide, but the fights themselves are automated. While the results are partially based on the strength of your units and their equipment, their abilities and the trigger conditions you assign to them are also critical. Conditions dictate how an ability is used and when they will be activated. For example, if you have an archer with no conditions attached to their shot ability, they will default to attacking the unit directly in front of them, when you could instead add conditions that tell them to prioritize flying enemies or squishy units hidden in the back row. This system encourages creativity with your squad positioning, as certain abilities are more likely to be used based on where a unit is located, and you'll need to make the most of what you're given to succeed on the higher difficulties. There's even an online mode where you can challenge other people's squads or post your own, which is a great way to fully explore the depth of combat.
We've nothing to fear.
The sheer number of different unit types and classes available to you is a major strength of Unicorn Overlord, but it can become tedious while managing your army. When fully maxed, you have to keep track of more than 50 units. The class diversity is staggering on its own, and the strategic possibilities become more vast when you combine different types into a squad. That can get overwhelming, but it's fun to tinker with different setups, like creating fully mounted squads to quickly dash across the map, capturing objectives.
A fine bout.
For most battles, the objective is simple enough: defeat the enemy captain and capture their garrison. Fortunately, missions usually have some side objective or unique mechanic that keeps everything fresh. Maps can also be incredibly varied, with a wild sense of scale, as war zones span huge chunks of the countryside. Unicorn Overlord's gimmicks in special one-off maps are also some of the best in the genre. Avoiding spoilers, a relatively basic example is a mission with a cycling sandstorm that severely limits visibility while you maneuver against two feuding factions at the same time.
I shall hold nothing back.
As a rebel force, you're also expected to be the aggressor, and Unicorn Overlord supports this setup with some unique mechanics that address common problems in other similar games. A time limit prevents turtling, and a stamina mechanic forces you to use more than just a few OP units. Good positioning is rewarded with the ability to swap nearby squads in battles, and with no threat of permadeath, training your weak units is encouraged.
Raging storm.
Unicorn Overlord even handles the fear of a game over well, offering a rare, consumable item that averts the fail state by giving you more time or allowing you to defend your stronghold if it's captured. It's nice that it boils this down to just one decision of whether to burn the item or not, rather than the more common turn-back time mechanic that can trap you in a cycle of micromanaging all your mistakes away. Victory grants you the currencies needed to upgrade your army, but those can also be earned outside of battle by gathering resources and delivering them to cities and towns to help them rebuild. That encourages you to explore to find resources and other secrets, which then helps you scout out the next battlefield before the battle itself unlocks more towns to deliver resources to, which makes for a really great loop. When viewed in the full context of this remarkably creative journey, most of Unicorn Overlord's issues end up feeling like nothing more than nitpicks. The tactical combat system is unique and complex, while also being easy to understand, expertly blending mechanics from many of its peers with smart new additions of its own. The interesting terrain across the continent of Fevrith makes every fight feel unique, with some of the best map gimmicks in any strategy RPG. And because the campaign is told through the eyes of a diverse and creative cast, its tropey fantasy story is elevated in a way that a more traditional storytelling style wouldn't manage. These shorter, more personal stories work wonderfully to support a loop of exploration and liberation that always leaves you begging to see one more tale told, one more town rebuilt, and one more battle fought. For more RPGs, check out our review of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and for everything else, stick with IGN.